Okay, guys, today we've got the pleasure of hanging out with Heather Woolwine, who's the Director of Communications for the Town of Hilton Head. And we're going to talk about something that I think is near and dear to pretty much anybody that spends time on Hilton Head Island and interested in its primary natural resource, which is, of course, the beach. Hands down. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for chatting with us. Why are we talking today? We're talking today because you are on the precipice of a major beach project, which is the Beach Renourishment Project, right?
We are.
Tell us about what the scope of that is, when it starts, and kind of what's happening there.
Sure. Happy to do that. So we're about to embark on our fifth Beach Renourishment Project from the town. So the first one was back in the 90s, and the most recent was in 2016.
Okay.
A banner year for a lot of not great reasons, but
right. Yeah. Well, let's touch base on that. It was right after Hurricane Matthew, and where there was a lot of wash on the beach and a lot of washed away. In fact, I remember being on the island the day after the storm cleared out, and obviously I got back by boat and I was able to drive around by my vehicle from living in Sea Pines, and I got down and was checking on properties and walked out to one of our oceanfront property listings and just was amazed at what I saw. And really what was so stark was, okay, you understand that there's washout of sand, but we're talking about some of these oceanfront homes had washed back all the way to the foundation of their pools. And that caught my attention. So I was so glad to see that there was funding and emergency positioning in place to be able to get that done. Of course, we've enjoyed the beach so much since that time, pushing towards 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was the last time. So
that was the last time.
Is this preventative or is this reactive or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. Okay. A little bit of both. That's a great question. And going back to what we were saying there at the beginning, phase-wise, right? The way they do beach renourishment, you've got project windows or permit windows.
Sure. Yeah.
And so our first phase is going to could start around June. It's looking more like July of this year, just from a contracting standpoint, and getting the bids out, which we actually just issued that this week. So very timely discussion.
So you'll be able to figure out eventually, sometime soon, who that contractor is. And you and I were just chatting before, there's only so many contractors that in that really tight world.
Absolutely.
So you've got a few that you go to, and then you got to figure out who's going to be the best.
Yeah, internationally, it would probably surprise a lot of people, but there's really only a handful of companies worldwide that do this work. Yeah. So it's important, that everybody's kind of firing on all cylinders. There's a lot of moving parts happening at the same time.
Yeah. The good news on that probably is that they're all known entities, meaning if there's only a few that are doing it, they've done the majority of the projects. You can get good feedback on it. Can we back up just a little bit on the permitting? Sure. I've had some experience with dredging projects, and there are permitting windows or time windows where that needs to be completed. My understanding of that is in part that it's less about the people and more about the animals, the marine life, et cetera, protecting the natural resources. Is that what that permanent window is about?
You are correct. It's about making sure that you're not, having a huge negative impact on, migratory shorebirds or turtle nesting season. And I know that's a big concern for a lot of people. What will happen if the work is taking place during nesting season?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we want people to know is that we're working really closely with our Hilton Head Island Sea Turtle Patrol. So that if a nest does need to be relocated, it will be.
Because that is during nesting period, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because this
season starts in May, and
right. So you're kind of right there. So there is a conflict, but you were talking about how this is going to progress. You're starting on the north end of the island.
We are. Okay. We are. So that Fishhall Creek area, the heel.
Yes, of the shoe.
The shoe.
Yeah.
So starting there, so that, again, could start as early as June 2025, but it's looking more like July.
Right.
And then we would carry that through to September.
Okay.
Time frame.
So it'll progress down the beach.
It will. And so there's some real thought been put into that from the standpoint of the busier sort of beach areas of the island, peak season. Let's try not to compete too much with that, and let people be able to enjoy the water.
Yeah, we'll talk about what that looks like. So you start on the north end. There's a couple spots up there that are taking place, then swing down. And there are certain segments. It's not the entirety of the beach, right? 14 miles or something like that. It's not the entirety of that.
Correct.
So you got some spots on the north end, some spots down on the south end, down around South Beach and facing into the Calabogie Sound a little bit. But then in the middle, right, it's that middle zone, sort of South Forest Beach, North Forest Beach, Shipyard, Palmetto Dunes, looked like on the town map, looked like that was the bulk of the...
That is where most of the restoration or renourishment effort is going to take place.
Is that just because that's the natural wash away? Is that sort of what happens?
That storm activity, I mean, there's a variety of factors that come into play, but absolutely. And then, there's also, where Hilton Head sits, right? We have a number of rivers and creeks that feed in around us. And so all of those factors work together to create a situation where we need to renourish. And and it's not just because we like to push sand around, there's some really important reasons to do it. You mentioned earlier, the protection of property.
Yeah. Of course.
Is the material investment here on the island. There's an environmental component to it.
Right.
We want to protect the habitat that we all love so much.
There's not just pumping sand back on. I mean, that's a major project, and we'll talk about what that actually looks like in a second. But I remember after Matthew, one of the first things that were installed were sand fencing. All the way up and down, which is very effective, right, in terms of catching sand as it's blowing up and down the beach to stop it in this place and start rebuilding those dunes.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to the town that, and every season we do this, we message the importance of not moving in and around those dunes, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of the first line of defense.
Keep them pristine, keep them in place.
They're not just pretty, they serve a purpose.
Yeah. So this is a major undertaking, but in some ways it's very simple. They put piping out along the ocean floor out to a certain location where there is beach quality sand.
Right.
They, for lack of a better term, suck it up and they pump it onto the beach, and then they sort of quarantine it so the water can wash away, the sand stays, and then they kind of groom it with some bulldozers.
See, you've got the process. That's absolutely right.
Sounds like anybody could do this.
It's like you do beach renourishment.
Right. Well, I've seen it before in all these years I've been here, and it's pretty fundamental.
It is. Well, it's I think another great thing to point out too is that the beach is open. It will stay open. And the way the project moves, and once we have a contractor and specificity and timeline, one of the things we're going to have on the website is basically a tracker. So you're going to be able to see where the work is happening in real time.
And try to avoid that area.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I remember, maybe correct me, but it looked like they had, where they're working, first of all, because you see where the sand and water is being pumped on, and they've got that kind of crowd around so they can collect it, and you see where the machinery is going, and then you either see where they just were or where they haven't gotten to yet. So it's pretty clear where you shouldn't be. It's like, right.
Absolutely. And we'll be sure that we're, marking things off. Signage will be up. It'll be, easy for people to understand where they should or shouldn't be on a particular beach at any time.
Right. And yet there is, they keep moving along. So there's almost an immediate gratification component to this, right? Like
there is.
There's a thought where we're going to bring this much sand in or this much or whatever it is. Once we get there, the sand dries out, and we move down to the next.
It's a 24/7 operation, to your point. So it keeps things moving. Not any one area is affected for a particularly long period of time.
Right. But you're going to hear the bulldozers.
You will hear them. And again, there's always the consideration, trying to think through hours of operation, the tasks that need to be executed, and trying to line those up as much as possible.
But maybe it's a pump barge, for lack of a better term. That's out at sea.
Absolutely.
So you're not hearing that.
No.
It's just this pipeline comes up and eventually it just emerges onto the beach, and there it goes.
Yep. And you might hear some of the bulldozer noises and some of those things as well.
Do they still have the backup beep, beep, beep?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. they can't unplug that. Come on. Oh my gosh. If they can just unplug that, then we can all deal with it. Mm-hmm. So we know this is going to be going all throughout the summertime. Everybody's going to be here is going to be notified if you're a rental guest, your rental agency, if it's going to be in unaffected areas, going to let you know and that sort of thing. So there should be pretty good communication. That's your job. That's what we're
That
trying to
is
do,
it.
right?
No pressure, right?
Right.
No, but we're definitely we're taking a multi-pronged approach. So, or a lot of people, talk about push and pull strategies. So the information there's a very robust website.
Yeah, let's talk
Microsite kind of within our site.
Okay, so what's that URL where people could go if they want to learn more about it and see what the permits look like?
Just type right in Beach Renourishment in the top bar, or there's a drop down under our island.
Okay.
You can go right to it. It'll probably tell you more than you ever wanted to know
Right.
about Beach Renourishment. But again, it'll have it's got frequently asked questions. It's got maps. It's got and again, over time, as we get more specificity, we'll be adding more maps,
More
and more
interactive.
interactive maps.
So somebody could just Google Town of Hilton Head 2025 Beach Renourishment. It's going to
come right up. It'll come right up. And there's also an opportunity on the website to subscribe specifically for just beach renourishment updates. Although I'd love you to subscribe to all kinds of updates.
Yeah.
Because we, have a lot going on with the town in general.
Well, one of the things that this isn't free, right? It's a major undertaking. Thank goodness it's not an every year kind of thing, and it's probably not cheap. So money comes from tourism, comes from some real estate transactions, maybe some other kind of components. There's a pool that kind of gets built up for this.
That is correct. So, right now, project cost, again, is, an estimate because we won't know until we get the actual contract in place. But, you're somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 to $50 million. And the vast majority of that is going to come from our accommodations tax dollars. Sure. So that's the money that anybody who stays overnight on the island of Hilton Head, visitors, tourists, they help. They get to enjoy it and they get to help us.
Yeah, almost a little bit of pay as you play, I think, right? Softly, not secretly, but just sort of happening behind the scene.
Yep.
And that's such obviously a huge industry for us locally that if you're not doing it, but every 6, 7, 8, 9 years or whatever, it has a chance to accumulate, invest, and then turn into the money you need.
And to your point, there's ongoing maintenance, right, of beach parks and the beach itself that is outside of beach renourishment that gets paid for through some of our real estate taxes here specific to the island.
Sure.
So again, it's, buying on the island, supporting the island. A lot of times people, I feel like, that it can be hard to track where those tax dollars go.
Yeah, of course.
And we're fortunate here that you can see the results.
Well, they're going to see it big time this summer and into this fall. And I'm grateful for what the town is doing to coordinate that, keep our island safe, keep it preserved, and keep just a wonderful natural amenity rocking and rolling for everybody. So, Heather, thanks for being here with me.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're looking forward to seeing what the beach looks like by this fall.
Awesome.